Hey guys, so today my speech is over the effects that neglect has on communication and general life into adulthood. I want to start off with a quote by J.K. Rowling: "Indifference and neglect often do much more damage than outright dislike." Neglect in young childhood is important because it has a lasting effect into adulthood and creating relationships. I've done research on multiple articles over the last week and have experienced neglect in my childhood. There are lasting effects of neglect that extend into adulthood, such as the inability to form long-term relationships, have healthy communication skills, and general decreased health. Neglect is the most common form of abuse, whether it be from family or a third party. When neglect takes place, there is an increased chance of poor communication skills and distrust that transfers over to growth in the body and the mind in adulthood. So my first main point is that childhood neglect has negative effects on the ability to create an interpersonal relationship later in life. A study by Rebecca Coleman shows that abuse and neglect victims are less likely to have a successful relationship. Male and female abuse and neglect victims report higher rates of cohabitation, walking out, and divorce than the control groups. Neglected females were also less likely than controls to have positive perceptions of current romantic partners and to be faithful. Coleman has also hypothesized a link between childhood maltreatment and impaired social functioning. A number of developmental theories propose that individuals construct expectations of relationships based off of interaction patterns with their primary caregivers, like parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles, whoever raised them. When applied, these perspectives predict that individuals neglected in childhood may develop thoughts and behaviors harmful to the formation and maintenance of positive relationships. My second main point is that the effects of childhood neglect affect the ability of healthy communication. In a study by Joanna Young, I paraphrase that since maltreated children do not have an example of healthy communication, they have not obtained that skill for later in life. It is believed that maltreating parents tend to be isolated themselves and to isolate their children from interactions with others, providing fewer non-parental models of emotional communication. With no chance of communication growth, then it is more likely for neglected children to be more introverted and untrusting. The lack of communication skills in adulthood is detrimental to intimate relationships. A study by Sophie Boucher showed that emotional neglect was strongly associated with submissive behaviors in relationships. This might show that one's feelings and needs have been neglected as a child. One might avoid communicating his or her wishes and needs to his or her partner in adulthood. So my last main point is that the neglect of caregivers and even third parties affect the general health of the child. Neglected caregivers deter the growth of the body and health of the child. In the documentary, The Trials of Gabriel Fernandez, Gabriel was forced to sleep bound in a closet, which means he had no room to grow. Gabriel was also often forced to skip meals and didn't receive the proper nutrients. It is not only the caregivers that neglected the child, but it also can be third parties, such as social services. In the documentary, the social workers knew about the abuse and neglect and did little to nothing. The social workers had multiple reports of abuse and neglect, but turned a blind eye to it, which contributed to the death of Gabriel. So just restating my earlier statement, some of the lasting effects of neglect during childhood years are the inability to create long-term relationships, have strong communication skills, and decreased health. So just a review for all of this stuff that I just went over. Childhood neglect has negative effects on the ability to create interpersonal relationships later in life. The effects of childhood neglect affect the ability of healthy communication, and the neglect of caregivers and even third parties affect the general health of the child. So, as a conclusion to this whole speech, 60.8% of childhood victims were neglected. Not even all of them lived. 1,770 children have died in 2018, and it grows every year. This topic is important because some people are uninformed, and others just turn a blind eye that leads to death, like Gabriel's. Thank you.